All right, it is that time again. NFL last call here, week 14. Joe Raineri in for Kelly Stewart, who is still trying to lick her wounds, I think, from Kansas State getting their asses handed to them by the Johnnies yesterday. But that's a story for a different day. We've got plenty of updated information for you on this card here in week 14 of the NFL. We'll talk live from the Risk Room at the Westgate with John Murray coming up. But more importantly, your questions. If you've got them, get them ready here, because coming up, Jesse Schule will be taking all of them on any of the games that you want. But first, no better way to kick off a Sunday than talking with our man VR, Gianni the Greek in the house, ready to roll here today. And what already, Gianni, we're starting to see a little bit of line movement across the board with some information that we're getting here. What are you seeing on this Sunday morning?
Yeah, forgive me. I'm firing right now as it just came in. So if you guys want, this just came in a team total under 13.5. First half, Steelers, good, up to -120. And then under 24.5, under 24.5 for the full game, on the Pittsburgh Steelers side. So a lot of under money on the Steelers for that team total.
Yeah, Pickens ruled out. In case you guys did not hear or did not know, Pickens has been ruled out. So the number one receiver of the Steelers will not be available to him there, as that full game total is cratering as well there, Yanni. So here it goes as guys are trying to fade Pittsburgh as best as possible. So don't, if you're seeing that number, that's what's going on there with the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Browns. That game is coming up at 1:00. What else are you seeing there, Yanni? What else is coming in?
All right, real quickly, another team total. This is the only other team total, was the Carolina Panthers first half under 7.5. First half under 7.5. And I have one quick prop for you, player prop. Neighbors for the New York Giants. We went under in receiving yards, under 72, all the way to under 70.5, and also under 6.5, under 6 receptions. Now, let's go over some of these sides, because there's a lot of sharp action, and there's been a lot of like two-way manipulation. But here's what I've been able to narrow down with for you guys. That's legit. Vikings -5.5. 125. Jaguars at +3.5. And under 42.5. 127. Raiders at +7. 129. Browns at +7. Remember, key numbers there. They also went over early in the Browns, 40.5 and 41. But today they slammed the under. And I agreed with that under. I also bet the under myself, released to subscribers. That under at 44, they started betting it under 44, 43.5 and 43. Also, Eagles at -12.5. And you know they bet that team total under for the Panthers. That bodes well there. Miami and the Jets, two-way action. Laid the 5.5 on Miami earlier in the week. Came back, laid vig to take the 7 on the Jets. A lot are even taking the 6.5 on the Jets. That's the sharp side, but it got bet up earlier in the week. Public's probably the heaviest on Miami that I see in the back end. Move down then to the Bears at +6, down to +4. They've been betting it the entire week. And finally, the under 45 in the Chargers-Chiefs games. Again, I know there's been a ton of line movements, but you got to remember in the NFL, the lines are so tight, so sharp, that within a point and a half movement, you're going to get resistance the other way. I've been seeing that nonstop. One group's on side team A at -2, but at 3 or 3.5, the other team comes in, another group comes in. So it helps to show you just how tight these NFL lines are. And with the kind of year the books have been having, I have not heard crying like this, honestly. I think I got to go back, Joe, 15 plus years where the books have gotten this beat. I actually bumped into, I don't want to say the name, but a top bookmaker of a very big property at Slap. And he's like, bro, we've gotten destroyed. We haven't lost like this at our property, he said, since I've been there as far as the NFL goes. It's rare for the books to get killed, but the favorites come in. And man, if the favorites keep covering like that, especially in the big primetime marquee games, it's going to cost the books. That's what's been happening.
It's unbelievable, Gianni, especially this week. A lot of head-scratching lines coming out originally. The Falcons and Vikings game is one that comes to mind. Have you seen any action during the week on it? Because it's been at 5.5, 6, and it just doesn't seem to be going anywhere.
No, you're absolutely right. I know some guys that were looking for, if they said, if you could find 7 on Atlanta, take it for us. Take it, grab some 7 on Atlanta. But I'm almost 100% certain that these are the same guys that laid the 4.5 on the look ahead on Minnesota. I'm almost 100% sure, Joe. So that's why I actually like the Minnesota side. I think this line should be at that key number of 7. So anything less than that, I liked it. I think Atlanta's a phonier than a $3 bill. And I think Minnesota's a little bit undervalued, meaning they've been winning games, but of late they haven't covered. Over the season, they're, 8-4, I believe, ATS. So usually a team like that, that's getting a lot of wins, ATS is going to regress towards the mean. But that hasn't been the case because they haven't been costing them a lot of money. I like this Minnesota team. Again, as long as you're not laying 7, I think it's the side.
Yeah, and it's interesting, too. The Panthers and the Eagles are the biggest spread of the week here at 14. I'm seeing was 13.5. Are anybody going near that, Gianni? Are they looking to back the Panthers?
Yes, they're taking Carolina. The betting public's not taking the Eagles. The sharp bettors did lay the Eagles. They laid double digits with the Eagles earlier in the week. In fact, they were comfortable laying 13 up until the other day on the Eagles. Today, though, that's not what we're seeing. None of the sharp groups are laying the 14. Not even the piggybackers are laying the 14. In fact, I missed the early number on the Eagles, and I haven't laid the 14 with my subscribers just because I think the value's been extracted. But once you get up to those double digits in the NFL, 11.5, 12s, 13, 14s, it really doesn't make a difference. It's only so high they can go. It's kind of like a total in Major League Baseball, where back in the day they were stuck at 7. They would just vig it at 7. You never saw 6.5. You never saw 6. Now you see 5.5 totals in Major League Baseball. It's kind of like that with football as well. Once you get into these high favorites, remember those Patriot teams that were 17-point favorites? Yep. How do you know whether they should be 17 or 18.5? Like once you get into the higher numbers, remember, the lower the numbers, the more they matter. The higher the numbers, the less they matter. That's why we don't tease things like college football. We don't tease things like NBA because of those numbers. In the NFL, it's once you get into those double-digit spreads, that's exactly what happens. Rest assured, the public's taking Carolina today. They're taking the 14. I've even seen teasers, 10-point teasers, taking them up to 24. Like, they can't lose by 4 touchdowns, can they? They can't lose by 4 touchdowns. The total's only 45. How are you going to lose by 28 points? 20, you know what I mean? 4 touchdowns with a total of only 45. Be careful when things look that easy. Sometimes it just isn't. Eagles
2
may
lines,
roll this
I can see that happening. You saw, you had mentioned Dolphins getting a lot of public support. That line and the Raiders and Bucs line, Gianni, looks to be, it was 7, the cutoff. Do you see it reaching 7? Is that where they're going to start betting it the other way?
Now, here's what happened with Miami. I actually released Miami to my subscribers earlier in the week at -5.5. Things changed as the week developed. And I had to do something, Joe, that pisses people off more than anything else. And that's letting them know that there's a buyback or I'm getting off the bet. Now, to make my life easy, I just shouldn't say anything. Just keep my mouth shut. I get off the bet myself, and I pray that Miami wins for my subscribers. But I can't do that. If I'm not risking my own money, I can't have someone else do it. So I got -5.5 on Miami for a 4% play. Today, I went in there and I took the Jets. I said, if you could, it's at 6.5. If you could buy it up to 7, that's the move. Because you got -5.5 here, +7 over here. Maybe we hit a middle and we paid a little big for that risk. Or if worse, take the 6.5, -5.5, +6.5, because I don't want to be on Miami's side. So I have to get off it. Again, that pisses people off, but everything I'm seeing is telling me I'm making the right move, Joe, because I see nothing but Miami money. It's not sharp. It's all public today. It was sharp earlier in the week at 5.5, but at 6.5 and 6s, it's been nothing but public. And it's the most one-sided I've seen. And they won't get to that key number. Why, Joe? Why? That's why I had to get off it. And as far as the Tampa Bay game, that's exactly what you're seeing. Looking to take the Raiders at +7. And it's there now. There's places that I could get them to 7 if I lay 120. They haven't hit me up on it yet. So I don't know. Earlier they wanted 7, but they weren't willing to pay the price. Now that they could get the 7 and they're being asked to lay the price, they're not doing it. that is where I wouldn't touch it. I wouldn't touch it. Gun the head. I'd take the Buccaneers, man. I'd take the Buccaneers there, but not a game that I'm interested in. I'd look under too. Under the over's being bet like they have tomorrow's newspaper. That much I can promise you. They're betting it, Joe. Like they already opened the newspaper and it said 62-60 final. They scored 140 points or whatever. That's how they're betting that over. I actually want to. You don't get rich fade in the public, but that's one of them. I'm dying to do, Joe. I want to bet that under so bad I can taste it.
Yeah, they were betting Iowa State like they knew the score before the game even started yesterday, too. How'd that work out? Well, you mentioned it, and Big Daddy in the chat room. Wong teaser picks, Gianni.
I love you, brother.
Not a lot to maneuver, but what are you going with?
I should have never gave them my secret because they knew about the Wong teaser, and they've been blocking it. And not saying that I came up with it. I'm sure other sharp bettors have been doing the same thing. I just never mentioned it until this year about waiting till it's very late. And I explained why it makes sense. And what I've been seeing is they've been allowing less and less of these because as of right now, if the games were kicking off at 12:15, here's the problem. There's not a single Wong on the board. Not a single Wong on the board that you would have to force something saying, Tampa's at 7 or something like that. 7 and it's not. There's nobody that's teasable. The only thing that it's a little bit is maybe Seattle, but it's 3. You know what I mean? Like if that was 2.5, we would tease Seattle up. But it's just not there, man. That's where you just got to pass. With the Wong teasers, there's strict rules. The reason you're up 20 whatever units is because you just follow strict rules. Your parameters are set. You're robotic. If they're there, we bet them. If they're not, we pass and we wait till next week. That's why we've made money betting those Wong teasers.
Yep. Yeah. Do not force it, Gianni. That's exactly, that is the best advice. Do not, just because it looks there, don't force it if it ain't there, especially week 14.
It's not going to help you. It's not going to help you.
No. There's no EV in that. What are we looking at with the Saints and the Giants? Why are people betting the Saints outdoors like they know the score too as well here? Have you seen any buyback for the Giants at all?
No, dude, that's exactly what's happened. You're absolutely right. They started betting them from the 3.5, 4.5, betting the Saints. When it got to 5, in fact, it was 5 earlier this morning. I saw a little take back, meaning it went to 4.5, but it didn't last but for 10 minutes. As soon as it went to 4.5, they bet it again. They bet it enough to where it moved not a half point, it moved a whole point up. So there's something they really like about this Saints team that I don't understand because again, the Giants aren't any team I'm excited about. You know what I mean? Were they 2-9 against the spread? It's not like they're covering games. They're 0-6 at home as well. They haven't won a single home game, but that's a motivated team if you haven't won yet at home. You know what I mean? Like if you're playing for anything, it's to at least get that one win at home and not go, you know what I mean, without a loss. And how can you get excited about this Saints team? They've got 2 wins in their last 10 games, and they were coin flip games. I mean, they were by in Atlanta at home. They won by a field goal, and that was a coin flip line with Cleveland. No confidence there. But when they're betting it like that, you got to pay attention, Joe. And that's what sticks out to me. Like when I see something that doesn't make sense, on paper, we all see the same thing, and yet they're continuing to do it. I pay attention. Like gun to my head, just reading the line, I'd bet the Saints. Yeah. And again, I don't want to lay points with this team on the road that doesn't cover spreads, but the line's telling me it's Saints or pass.
Yeah. Outdoors, no less, with Derek Carr. That's always fun. What about these late games, Yanni? Obviously, the Sunday night game, I would imagine there's going to be a ton of money coming in probably later, just before kickoff there. But is anything piqued your interest? Are you seeing anything? Bills, Rams, Bears, Niners, Seahawks, Cardinals, any of these late games?
Here's what I've seen so far. Cardinals are slowly but surely becoming a huge risk for the books. And it hasn't been sharp money. In fact, I'm pretty I'm wondering why they haven't taken the points with Seattle yet at that key number. But I think as the risk mounts, depending on what happens early, they may even get a better number, like not have to pay VIG or whatever. But that is definitely moving a lot of public money on the Cardinals. And then the Bears 49ers. Wise guys were betting the Bears all week from +6 to +4, and they're still betting them. And it's not as if the public's coming on 49ers. They have no faith in them. So it's all one-sided. That's why it's down to that key 3. Like, I think if you missed the Bears, I think it's too late to bet them now. You could have got even 3.5, 4 yesterday. So I think it's one of those where, again, I don't like the Niners. They seem like a dead team. But if the Bears were offered you value at +6, how could they be doing it at +3 too? Like, how off could the book have been? That's how I look at it. Like, if I take the Bears, I'm not betting from a position of strength. I'm taking +3, and I know I could have got a better number if I just went to the window yesterday. So when that's the case, it makes it easy for me where it's Niners or pass, and it becomes a pass. Sunday night, they're getting lucky because there's good two-way action. The reasons for that is even though Kansas City's at home, they haven't been winning by margin. They've been winning games, but they haven't been covering spreads. So, and more importantly, they're a public team that gets a lot of money every week. So not only have they been losing at ATS, but they've been losing for bettors. They got an ugly taste in their mouth. Where on the flip side, Chargers have done nothing wrong. Not only have they won football games, but they've covered football games. So that's why you got good two-way action. It's not on a key number of 3 or 7. It's at 4, which matters. But as long as they stay on it, they're good. And that's what they seem to be doing, Joe. This is the kind of game you want to be a bookmaker because you're able to balance that risk. But the sharps haven't really spoken, and the public's going both ways, even on the over-under. That's why we haven't seen all that much movement. So they've done a good job of pricing Kansas City so far this year. I like the Chiefs, man. And eventually they're going to regress or progress towards that ATS mean, and I think their ATS mean's a lot better than what we've seen so far this year.
Why is the hook still available in the Rams-Bills game, Gianni? I don't think it's ever been to 3. Do you think it heads there? It's interesting.
It got the 4.5, and like I said, I saw some sharp money come in on the Rams.
And then that was it.
It would stop it. That you nailed it. When that's the case, they're usually going to bring it down to 3. The reason they haven't, though, I don't think it's heavy money on the Rams. And also, I would expect that there's enough public money offsetting it on Buffalo. Buffalo's one of those teams that get money each and every week, regardless. You know, they're a regular season team that scores points, so bettors like to back them. I think that's why we haven't seen 3.5 yet, because the sharps already took the 3.5, so they don't need more of it. And right now, why give the bettors a better number on Buffalo when they're going to lay it at 3.5 or 4 anyway? I think that's what we're looking at there, because looking at the back end, it's all one-sided on Buffalo from the bettors.
Absolutely amazing stuff. All right, Gianni, you crushed it last night in UFC, my man. So congratulations. Huge night there for you on the card. The fights were a lot of fun. How about today, though? Heading into this week 14, what do you got locked and loaded? A lot of college basketball interest today, too, huh?
Indeed. I gave out like 5 college basketball plays. I gave 4% college basketball and 4% in NBA because all the attention's on the NFL. But I think I'm 64% on NFL, 5% this year. I've been very selective, over 23% ROI, and I found one today. I found the 5% that I fired on. So far, honestly, Joe, I don't say this. It is my biggest NFL bet so far this year. It'll probably change. I'll probably bet more because as the playoffs come, I have more confidence. But so far this year, this is my biggest bet. It's a prime time matters kind of game. And I think I got a good number. It's still available, which matters. The number's still there. And 5%. Head on over to the Steam Room, baby. We're having a lot of fun.
Get over to the Steam Room. You ought to get the hell out of here. We got tickets to cash, my man.
Good luck, Joe.
Thank you very much. All right. Always a pleasure to see Gianni. Always a pleasure to see you guys as well. Do not forget to hit that like button and subscribe button if you're just joining us here today on Last Call. The show every Saturday for college football. Obviously, that'll transition into college basketball, but we still have some playoffs in college football on Saturdays. And then, of course, Sunday here on Last Call at WagerTalk TV. Providing all that last-minute information for you. Peasy, it's in the description. It's in the link. You guys can check that out for Gianni and the Steam Room. In the meantime, we're working to get all the information in the risk room there from John Murray. We'll let you know exactly what the book's needs and wants are. But if you have a question about any particular game, now is the time to drop it into the chat room. Why? Because our man Jesse Schule in the house, ready to roll here and take your questions on these games. And Jess, we're back to what do we got here? It's back to bye week for some teams here, so not a overly sexy and exciting card here, but some value on the board one way or the other. And we'll start with that. The news with Pickens being out, it looks like we've gotten the most steam over the last 20 minutes here in this Pittsburgh and Browns game. Six and a half, somewhere in that ballpark is still what we're seeing. 43 is the total was getting bet down because division rivals in Pittsburgh, weather, colds. But if Pickens is not there, how confident should we be that the Steelers can not only put up points, but win by at least a touchdown here?
Yeah, I mean, my first look on this game was obviously the revenge spot for Pittsburgh. The public's going to be all over Pittsburgh in this game. But, there was sevens on the board at points during the week. And I thought that's an awful lot of points in a rivalry game that's been pretty evenly played. I mean, each team's won 5 of the last 10 meetings. We just saw Cleveland win this game at home. And you got Jameis Winston throwing for almost 500 yards, 58 pass attempts against Denver last week. So I can't be laying 6.5 points with the Steelers. I don't want to play the total, but if I was going to be playing the total, 4 of the last 5 meetings between these teams have gone over the number. And, the number, I believe, is a little bit low based on the poor quarterback play for these teams in recent seasons. I mean, this isn't Mason Rudolph, Kenny Pickett, Charlie Batch. This is let Russ cook. And, he might not be in the same form he was when he was playing with the Seahawks and winning Super Bowls. But, I mean, I think he threw for 270 the other week or whatever. He can still sling it around the yard a little bit better than the Mason Rudolphs of the world. So if I was going to lean on the total, it would be over. But that gives us opportunities in the player prop market, and especially with Jameis Winston. I think somebody mentioned it earlier today, his pass attempts, 40-plus pass attempts in 4 of his 5 starts on the season, the lone exception being that blizzard in Cleveland. And, almost 500 yards last week. He's slinging it around the yard. The game script calls for the Browns to be losing, so they're not going to be running the ball. He's going to be throwing it around the yard. And I'm looking at the wide receiver, Jerry Jeudy. I don't know if you saw his interview after the Denver game. He was awful proud of himself. I think he went for 235 receiving yards. I don't expect him to put up those kind of numbers in Pittsburgh, but his production is way up since Jameis took over at quarterback. And I don't think the books have quite caught up to how productive he's been in this offense. So I like Jerry Jeudy props. I'd probably ladder it, take receptions, receiving yards, and throw in the anytime touchdown, sprinkle 1 unit on each of those.
I like the way you're approaching that game big time here as the questions rolling in, Jess, on these card and these games here today. Don't forget, hit that like button if you're joining us here. Shout out to Jimmy Jack, Titan CT, Eric D, Andrew in the house, PZ back in the house, Combat Vet here, Ricardo Wright, Big Daddy, Mike Cunningham, Fat Sean 21. Always a pleasure to see you guys on the Sunday edition of Last Call. All right, what about Miami? Laying 6.5. We talked to VR just a few minutes ago. You don't see it getting to 7. I don't see the books giving bettors an opportunity to buy back on it, but the public loves Miami at -6. And why wouldn't they? There were questions about whether Sauce Gardner is actually going. Breece Hall is definitely not going. The Jets are a hot mess, can't be trusted. Miami has dominated them. What are you thinking here? I mean, can they win by a touchdown or more?
I mean, if you made me play the side, it would definitely be on the Miami side of things. I don't think there's a ton of value at 6.5. Again, back to the player prop market. This Jets team is supposed to be a great defense, right? And they haven't given up a ton of yards, but they give up plenty of points. And as good as they are, as good as they rank as far as yards per game, they rank 20th against the run. They're allowing 120 yards per game. And I think this is a good spot, a good matchup for Devon A-Chain. Again, I'd probably do the same thing I mentioned with Jerry Jeudy and ladder it. Take the rushing yards, the rush receiving yards, and the anytime touchdown for Devon A-Chain. I think he's going to hit at least 2 out of 3 of those, if not all 3. The game script calls for the Dolphins to win the game and be leading wire to wire. That's going to result in enough running plays for a guy that's quite productive in the offense and a Jets defense with C.J. Mosley also out. I mean, this Jets defense is not what it is advertised to be. They're not as good as people think they are.
Yeah, I don't know what and I'm seeing it in the chat room with Miami Big here, Eric D. I'm already on their team total over. I think the Jets are in for a long day, and nobody punches down like the Miami Dolphins. And they beat up the lesser than 500 teams better than anybody, and they'll do it again here with New York. They've done it a lot over the last couple of seasons, and I'm sure they'll keep doing it, and that's coming from a Jet fan here. Bucky Irving
should
does
bring in
look
James
to be
Franklin as as their new offensive coordinator.
Yes, yeah, Shane Waldron. That'd be great too. That'll show you exactly where that's going. How about Philly laying the 14, Jesse? Is it Philly or pass for you, or do you think Bryce Young has actually shown you a little something here where maybe that back door will be open in the second half? Because quite honestly, what the hell does Philadelphia got to prove besides just winning the game?
Well, guys, I got plays for every game on the card today, so that's the good news. But the bad news is I don't have sides for every game on the card, and this is one that I wouldn't bet Joe's money on this one. I'm not in any hurry to lay 14. I don't want to take 14. But how about Bryce Young? I mean, he's coming off back-to-back big games. He's sort of feeling himself right now. And yeah, the Eagles have a great defense. They're great against the pass. But when they're up by 20, what's the incentive to, the starters might be coming out in the third quarter, putting up some numbers in garbage time. His passing number here for passing yards, only 192.5. He's gone over that by almost 100 yards in each of his last two games. I think Bryce Young comes out, slings it around the yard. It could get ugly. There could be a couple turnovers, a couple picks. They might get blown out, but at the end of the day, I think he goes over that number of 192.5, and that's my best bet for this one.
Yeah, I could absolutely see that. There are some questions in the secondary, though, for Philadelphia. It does look like, well, we know Goddard's done, right? He's on IR. But Reed Blankenship, their safety, both safeties, Sidney Brown and Blankenship, both out today. So not that Bryce Young will be the guy to take advantage of it, but who knows? We might be able to see maybe a little bit closer than earlier. All right. We also have another interesting game here that people have been looking about. It's on the late slate with Arizona and Seattle. I believe the chat room mentioned that Seattle will be down their running back, if I'm not mistaken. It's not like they can run a ball anyway, but Geno Smith, no Kenneth Walker, I believe, is what we're seeing. We'll try to get that confirmed for you. But a revenge spot. We just saw this game 3 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago? It was a rock fight. Both defensive-minded head coaches, both defenses playing great. Are we getting over this total? Are we looking at a side? What are you doing this game?
I mean, the first knee-jerk reaction with Kenny Walker going out is Zach Charbonnet. You look at Zach Charbonnet props, and I believe when Kenny Walker first went out earlier in the season for a stretch, Charbonnet had a big game right in the beginning and then just petered right off. And to be honest, I don't like Seattle running the ball here. I will not be on Charbonnet, but I'm looking at the running game for the Cardinals, a home game for the Cardinals. I think this team doesn't quite get enough respect. And James Conner, I think it's a good matchup for him. His rushing yards total sits at 62.5. So my best prop for this game would be Conner over 62.5 rushing yards. Seattle's run defense, 21st in the NFL, allowing 127 yards per game. For Conner to get halfway there, I think that's very doable in a game as a home favorite here.
Yeah, I like that. I like that approach. I bet the under earlier in the week because I don't see it being any different than what we got the first go around. And 7 looks like Combat Vet there talking about the Falcons money line. I like the under in the game, but at +6 now, and the Falcons have gotten absolutely no love. It feels like during the week at all, Jesse. It's been 5.5, 6. All week long here.
Well,
now Kirk Cousins coming home, right? Isn't Kirk Cousins coming home here?
Yeah, no, I'm glad to see our combat vets have giant cojones,
Yes,
to be betting
correct.
on the Falcons and Kirk Cousins after the last 2 weeks. And, I looked at this game quite closely, and I'm sure that the Falcons are the right side here, Joe. I couldn't bet it. I don't have any action on this game. I tried to talk myself into it. I believe it's the right side. I mean, at the end of the day, nobody wants to back Kirk Cousins based on what they saw the last week or two. But the easiest way to lose money betting the NFL is betting on recent results rather than long-term. And long-term, Kirk Cousins, the guy slings it around the yard. He's done quite well in his career. Think back to 2022, a game against the Colts when he was in Minnesota. I think they were down 4 touchdowns at halftime. They come back to win 39-36. I think that was the biggest comeback in NFL history, or at least one of them, if anybody in the chat remembers that. So I think the correct way to play this game is to take the points with the Falcons. If you're taking a side, as Marco would say, hold your nose. Don't fall victim to the recency bias. I think Minnesota, they're a little bit overvalued based on some of the teams they played a bit of a soft schedule. But I also have a prop for this game. I think we're going to have to take Kirk Cousins passing yards. Like I said, hold your nose, but Minnesota ranks number 1 in the NFL, allowing just 81 rushing yards per game, but 28th in the NFL, allowing 243 passing yards per game. Cousins is always amongst the league leaders in passing yards. And even in games where he's turning the ball over and throwing picks, he's still accumulating passing yards. The last I checked, his total was right around that number that Minnesota allows on an average of 243. I expect more money to be coming in on the under than the over. So you probably get decent value right before kickoff on that passing yards prop for Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, I like that. I like that look here. Another game that we didn't talk much about here, Jesse, and shout out to those guys joining us here in the chat room. Paco Healy, good to see you. Have Cash, as always. Bill Sandoval hanging with us here. Also, I believe Vinny Caparte. Cousins is going to get smashed here today. Not before he hits his prop. Let's hope that, first and foremost. Robert Barron over on TikTok. Appreciate you hanging out with us here today, as well as Slick Rick in the house over on TikTok. Make sure you guys hit that like button, follow button, and that subscribe button. Those of you joining us on YouTube or YouTube Shorts here, if you haven't done so already, we appreciate you swinging by. We haven't mentioned the Titans and the Jags, the game of the day. I mean, now who is not excited to watch these two teams play football here? Now, I held my nose, but I held it with the total, Jesse, because these two teams have played the number 1 and number 2 difficult schedules against defenses. They have been playing top 5 defenses all month long, it feels like here. Now they get to play each other, and these are the worst defenses that we've seen here in a long time, especially Jacksonville. It feels like points are probably coming in this one. It's hold your nose, but my goodness, are you leaning one way or the other? Is the Titans, I'm seeing 3. The hook is no longer available. I'm still seeing just a field goal for the Titans in this one.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to back Will Levis as a home favorite, you must be a glutton for punishment. I like your look on the total. What I've got written down in my notes is much along those same lines what you're saying. I mean, Jacksonville, basically a historically bad pass defense, by far the worst in the NFL. Even Will Levis should be able to throw on this Jacksonville defense. That said, Tennessee, statistically, they haven't given up a lot of yards, but they're banged up in the secondary. They've been trending the wrong direction. And, Mac Jones comes in, and a lot of people will say, oh, he's terrible. They said Sam Darnold was terrible. They said Baker Mayfield was terrible. Those guys have, they've resurrected their career. And a guy like Mac Jones is going to sit there and think, hey, I can do the same thing. Whether he can or not, it remains to be seen. But that doesn't mean he can't put a couple touchdowns on the board today. So my look was going to be Jacksonville over 17.5 points, team total.
You know what? Kind of like that look as well there. I do think points are coming finally, as both these teams maybe can breathe here a little bit there. All right, so we have got Plenty going on in the late slate. Some interesting games happening there. Of course, it's culminating to tonight. I know there are some questions, including Matt McLaughlin wants to know, is this the week the Chiefs stumble? I can make the argument, Matt, the Chiefs stumble every damn week, and then the football gods intervene, and somehow they shit out a win. It's the most unbelievable thing I've ever seen, Jess. I almost wish, if you're a Chiefs fan, hope they hit a losing streak where the ball doesn't bounce in their favor every fourth quarter, Jess, because at some point that's all going to even out. And they better hope it don't even out starting in January. So now would be the time for you not to get all those bounces. But listen, all you can do is play the teams on the schedule and they win. I still see fours, Jess. Who the hell is anybody betting the Chiefs? What are you thinking?
Geez, I think this is a Chiefs spot, to be honest with you. I mean, I think this, you think about a team with the record they have, where they got one loss, and they're only laying 3.5 or 4 points at home. They've been so good in Kansas City for so long, and I know the Chargers come in and they've looked impressive on defense this year, but again, the strength of schedule is a little questionable. They recently played Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson. They gave up 57 combined points in those games. They barely beat Cincinnati, and they lost at home to the Ravens. And now they're facing a Chiefs team that appears to be getting healthier. I mean, Pacheco's back. You look at Patrick Mahomes' stats for the season. So this season, 19 touchdowns and 11 picks. Not very Patrick Mahomes-like. But if you look at his last 5 games, 11 touchdowns and just 2 picks. Kelsey's starting to be more productive. You got Kareem. You brought in Kareem Hunt. He was effective for a time. Now Pacheco's back. You brought in D-Hop, and he's been so-so. He had a few drops last week or the last game. But yeah, I think this Chiefs team is a team on the rise, and I think it's a buy low spot on Kansas City and a sell high spot on the Chargers for this week anyways.
Yeah, it's wouldn't shock me at all if the Chiefs win again here, but my goodness, at some point it's got to swing the other way, Jess. You're not going to keep getting every one of those damn breaks. It's crazy. And I get
feels like I've been saying that for 5 years, Joe.
Isn't it? Yeah, I'll tell you what. I've been saying it for 2 decades, only replace Mahomes with Brady. And I felt like I've been saying that for 2 damn decades in the NFL with the Patriots first and now with the Chiefs. Like, good Lord, will somebody please beat this damn dude? Like, you got to be kidding me. But if the Chargers are going to be taken seriously, now's the time. Let's see what you got, Harbaugh. Let's see what you got tonight against the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead. All right. Jess, over at your page at WagerTalk.com, you mentioned you got plays on all the games here today. If folks were to visit you at WagerTalk.com, what are they getting here today?
So I got a 3-pack of early NFL games for the 1 o'clock slate, and I'm testing a perfect 5-0 run the last week with NFL and 14-5, 74% the last 30 days with NFL. So we're getting it done on the Pro Gridiron, and we're getting started early with a 3-pack in the early games.
I love it. No reason to not take advantage of, guys. Also, the $199 all-access deal through the end of the year. Get the rest of December. Every sport, every play, your favorite handicapper, just $199. Visit Jesse or VR or Teddy Covers or Marco or Brian Leonard or whoever it is that you guys like and follow. Partner up with them for just $199. And not just it's NFL, but you got, of course, college football playoffs, bowl games coming up. You've got the NHL, NBA, college hoop slate, huge college hoop slate today getting ready to go. So for $199, an all-access pass with your favorite capper is definitely worth taking advantage of. You got to pay for those damn holiday gifts, people. Let's go. Treat yourself, and let's make it a very profitable end to December. Jess, always a pleasure, man. Thank you so very much for hanging out with us. Guys, don't forget, each and every weekend, Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, Sundays, 12 o'clock Eastern Time, last call here, getting you ready with all the last bit of information you need before the games start. Kelly will be back next week. Certainly appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Thank you to VR. Thank you to you guys for stopping by. That thumbs up would be much appreciated. Hit that subscribe button. And more importantly, cash those damn tickets today, guys. We'll see you again next week for another edition of Last Call on WagerTalk TV. Good luck, guys. We'll see you again.